Good evening, WinCam. Good evening, Winchester. Good evening to all our affiliate stations on Verizon contiguous channels. Welcome to Visual Radio Live. The views and opinions on Visual Radio Live are those of Joe Viglione, the host, and his guests on the phone tonight. We've done 3 weeks of talking to our sports host and our vampire host, Frank Dello Stritto. So the views and opinions are mine and my guests, and this is our 3rd week. Next week we're off because of town council. Town council. Maybe I'll go in there and run a camera. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll take the night off. But I didn't wear my vampire costume tonight. Didn't wear my vampire costume. It is Happy Halloween. I want to tell everyone out there watching, if you go out driving, there's a lot of kids out there. There's a lot of wet leaves. Be very careful driving. Everyone's going very slow. Crowds of kids out there, and the dads and the moms. So it's good. It's a warm night. It's a very spooky night because of the rain and then the falling leaves. So it's truly Halloween here in Winchester, and we like that. The Red Sox won. We'll talk to John Byers, of course. There's a new TV show called Dracula. Not a very original name. This is the Dracula, the Connoisseur's Guide. And I picked it up at the Burlington Public Library. They discarded it, so I got it in the book sale Sunday. I love those book sales. You can't beat the Burlington Public Library book sale. It was like October 27th on Sunday. And they do it twice a year, and you fill up a bag, and you come away with some real treasures. This is a treasure for me. I got the Count, the Arthur Leonard book, the original Count, before he rewrote it. And we had Mr. Leonard on the show. We had invited Bela Lugosi Jr. tonight, but real short notice. So it's been a very busy month with politics. And you know that there's 5 days to Election Day. So get out there and vote on Election Day, November 5th. And it's 55 days till Christmas, okay? So get those fives there. And what did I buy the other day? 777 came up. Oh, I bought these glasses and a new T-shirt. And it just came to like 777, and the woman said, wow, I mean, like play that number. So 777 for my glasses and my T-shirt. And a few pair of glasses, actually, these reading glasses. I got 3 pairs and a T-shirt for 777. My secret weapon, but I won't talk about it. We won't say the name of the retail outlet. How's that? We won't, because we're a nonprofit TV station. What you can read for free is the Fun with the Beach Boys. It's a new Beach Boys DVD that I reviewed. It's on the Medford patch. If you Google my name and put the Beach Boys, it should come up. And it'll be on TMR Zoo if it's not up there already. It'll be up tonight or tomorrow. And maybe the Sabotage Times. I got to review Brian Ferry, Girl on Top. Lots of reviews, so little time. So it is 8:03 in the 8:03, 20 seconds. Let's call up our first guest. You know who it is? Famous sports guy.
Joe?
I'm holding up the Boston Globe.
What's up, my friend?
I'm holding up the Boston Globe.
I see it.
Oh, you're watching us?
Yep.
We have one viewer. We have one viewer.
Yep.
So, Koji was the secret weapon.
Koji was a secret weapon, but David was our MVP.
Well, Koji got the MVP for
For the ALCS.
All right, so they kind of share the wealth.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, normally you don't see a pitcher getting the MVP unless they have an outstanding, and normally it ain't even a closer. It's usually a starter, like for instance, John Lester. He had a good playoff, and he would have been in the running, but basically, when you're David Ortiz and you're on a list that only has 3 other people that are all in the Hall of Fame, 2 of them are deceased, one of them is an ex-Red Sox who was part of the team that last won a World Series at Fenway, how do you go wrong?
Well, it's a fairy tale story, worst to first. Koji and Lester.
Another way, Joe. This team played 178 games this year. All right.
They only lost 70.
And they lost 100 and they won 108. So that's pretty damn good for a team that finished with only 69 wins last year. All right?
So they lost one more than they won all of last year.
And the other thing to think out is here's the other thing, which a lot of people don't realize this. That big deal that they made last August allowed us to bring the players in that helped us to win this World Series.
It was pure genius, and it actually worked out for the LA Dodgers.
It worked out for the Dodgers, but here's the thing.
It was a win-win.
Right. We got rid of $58 million on our payroll for this season alone. We reinvested that $58 million and spent 52 of it to bring in the players that helped us to win the World Series this year.
And everyone wins. Jacoby's going to get $20 million a year wherever he goes.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. We're going to lose a lot of players starting next. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. I'll correct myself. Next Tuesday starts free agency, and there'll be a clock on it for the Red Sox to have exclusive negotiations with the players that are free agents for them. If they don't have anything settled by next Friday at midnight, those players like Jacoby Ellsbury, Mike Napoli, Stephen Drew, for instance, those are the guys that you don't want to lose now. Andrew Bailey, for instance, and Joel Hanrahan, you can deal with losing because they really didn't play much of a role.
Right, and we've got Koji for a while. He's not a free agent, right?
Yeah, he came over in a deal, and we got him for we got him at least. I believe that the terms of his deal, he has 2 years under our control before he turns a free agency. But it all depends whether they decide to pick up the option on that deal.
Yeah. This is a magnificent moment in time. I wonder because of the. When did they align these players? Did they do it in January, February?
They signed most of these players in the off-season last year, going into spring training.
So they came in here and there was the marathon bombing they had to deal with.
That was the thing. Matter of fact, that happened. That happened as they were leaving Boston that day to go to Cleveland, and the first person to hear about it was actually Will Middlebrooks, and word started getting around the team bus that something had happened. And by the time they got to Cleveland and saw the reports on it, they knew what had happened. Up until then, there was really no knowledge of what was happening back here in Boston because remember, they're either on their way to the airport or at the airport on their chartered jet. And that's the other thing with this game last night. You got to think that the Cardinals were a little put out by being stuck on their chartered plane for Joe.
Yep.
Okay, their chartered plane for almost 2.5 hours and not getting into Boston until after 11 o'clock the day before the game.
It's a conspiracy.
Well, no, it's not a conspiracy. Things like that have been known to happen.
It's a conspiracy.
But hey, we won it. We're the defending champions. They're having the rolling rally Saturday at 10 a.m. And the funny thing was, a lot of people, I don't know if you were paying attention to the coverage of it last night, but I think it was Channel 7 had their news trucks out around the state looking at the sporting goods stores and stores like Modell's, for instance, to see whether people were lining up. And where did they find the longest line of people?
Modell's.
Here in Medford.
Because of the great promotion they've done. Do you know where most of the disorderly conduct was?
In Boston.
Well, I heard there was some on college campuses, like in Western Mass.
Yeah, there was also some on college campuses, yeah.
So, behave. How immature. Now, a lot of cases got dismissed today, but there are 4 that are going forward.
Well, yeah. There was one case where a car was tipped over.
Oh, no. I hate hearing that. How can people go after people's personal property because we win?
What you have to look at is the fact that after that game last night, more than 1,000 or so people, that's what I want to say, but there might have been more, journeyed down to the finish line of the Boston Marathon and just celebrated.
And they touched the monument, and that was touching. But when you have vandals that take a great moment in history and mar it and tar and feather it, shame on them. It'll be forgotten. The misconduct, the wrongful conduct will be forgotten.
That whole celebration last night, you know how many arrests there were all together?
No.
10.
So, and there's only 4 going forward. 6 were dismissed today, including the guy running on the green line to Kenmore Square.
Wow.
He was running on the green line. They arrested him, and they let him go. They just dismissed the case. So they don't have time for it. The court systems are clogged up. They don't need stupidity. Now, I'm going to give you some facts. You ready?
Yeah.
Do not feel bad for Waka. Is that how you say his name, Waka?
Waka, yeah.
Don't feel bad for him at 22. All right? Because, listen to this. 2004, St. Louis lost to Boston. You know that, right?
Right.
Okay, so they were in the running in 2004. 2005, they lost to Houston. 2006, they beat Detroit. So they were in 3 years in a row in the World Series. Boo-hoo.
Yeah.
And they won one, okay? They missed the playoffs 2007, 8. In 9, they lost to Los Angeles in the NLDS.
Yeah.
So they were in the championship series. They missed the playoffs in 2010. 2011, they beat Texas in the World Series. So they won. They won in 06 and 11.
They were back in 13.
They lost to San Francisco in the NLCS last year, and they lost to us last night. Do not feel bad for them.
No, look, all you got to do is look at. They already got the odds out for next season, and the favorites are, who do you think? The Red Sox and the Cardinals.
Yep, and they should be.
And they should be, correct. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, now, the interesting thing was, I was talking to a friend of mine who I've talked about to you off the air many times in Florida, and we were talking about this, and we have our little deal with the Bruins and how I feel about the Bruins, but Channel 5 has been showing this little commercial with all the championships that have been won through the years, all the banners, all right, just to congratulate the Red Sox, and it shows all the banners all the championships that have been won by the professional sports teams, and again, and I have nothing against the Bruins except that they have been the poor, even though they're an original 6 franchise, they've been the poorest representative of winning championships. They've only won a total of 6 championships in their long, storied career.
But that's okay, John. You know, the hockey is not huge here.
Hockey was always huge here.
I know, but it's not huge here now. It was big when I was growing up in Arlington. It was the rage. Bobby Orr, it was the rage. You know, he's got a book out.
That really killed hockey, the loss of Bobby Orr here in Boston.
Well, you know, we got to get Orr on the show. He has a book, so I'm writing down who I should get. Bobby Orr. We had a lot of guests for tonight that didn't show up. Frank Imbergamo and another friend he's bringing in, Lisa Kavanaugh. Ben Sola from the Netherlands. He did a remix of Bobby Hebb's Sonny, which is amazing.
Yep.
So he wanted to be on the show, but he is out right now, people. It's 2 in the morning in the Netherlands. You know what he's doing, Johnny?
What?
Partying. I don't know if it's Halloween over there, but he said he's going out with friends to the club. So it's 2:15 or 3:15 a.m.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned Halloween, too, because tonight is Halloween.
Well, that's why I said it. It's Halloween.
And I learned a little story about Halloween, which I could tell the people who are watching if you're interested in
Sure, it's Halloween night. It's 8:14. John from Medford's on the phone. Johnny Byers. Go, Johnny, go.
Halloween was actually started in the late 1700s and the early 1800s by the Catholic Church. And the original Halloween was originally on the 25th of October, but in order to bring all the pagans in to convert them, they came up with a Halloween, and they also invented what is now known as All Saints Day, which happens on November 2nd, and that was the original trick or treat, where the children would go around to the churches, and they would get little sweet cakes as long as they would pray for departed souls that were in hell, hoping that the souls would ascend to heaven.
Now, is Dracula, who's stuck on planet Earth, feasting on the populace? He's not in hell or heaven. He's just in the in-between.
The only thing that the Americans have to claim for Halloween is the commercialization of Halloween and, of course, the jack-o'-lantern. Everything else goes back to ancient, the Catholic Church founding the Catholic Church's founding of Halloween and All Saints' Day.
So it started in Europe and came over here.
Yes. And we commercialized it with costumes and candy and, of course, the jack-o'-lantern.
And, you know, I've been working so hard today on my regular projects that I just didn't have time to indulge in the Koepp. And, you know, it'll date the show, too, so I don't want to date it. Let's have some fun. We got Red Sox to talk about. It's 5 days to Election Day, John.
Yeah.
And 55 days to Christmas.
Yeah, well, I mean, now we...
5 and 55.
We have the holidays, we have the Election Day, we have Thanksgiving coming up, too. So it's really going to be a busy couple of weeks in the next several weeks.
Well, for Winchester residents, it's interesting because Catherine Clark is most likely going to win the Congress seat. Yeah. Avadani, whatever his name is, people can't even pronounce his name, the Republican candidate. So if she wins, and it looks like she's the favorite to win, then maybe the Jason, who's here in Winchester, he's the state rep. He's probably going for Clark's seat, the Senate seat. So that's how things shuffle around. So Winchester, this impacts you, which the next election will be in November. I think it's November. No, I mean, I'm sorry.
December.
No, I think it's mid-November, this congressional...
oh, yeah.
It might be the 10th. It might... No, not the 10th. It'll probably be around the 20th. So this... I forgot the congressional date, but it does impact Winchester. So Winchester residents note that. And next week, John, we're not on the air. There's a town council meeting.
No problem. That way I know not to expect to hear from you.
You know, I should invite some Medford residents to come down here and experience town council because it's vastly different from ours. I might take some of the city councilors here next Thursday night. You know, let them see how the other half live.
But see, Joe, that's the thing. Your town government is run differently. Winchester's town government...
It's good for people to see.
...is run radically different.
Because even our elected officials, they are in the bubble. The bubble is Medford, all things Medford, and where Winchester and Medford are so closely aligned. Oh, I'm gonna go to Medford now. I'm gonna pivot to Medford. You ready?
Yep.
So I looked at the TV3 Medford Facebook.
Yep.
And there was a vicious posting about me. Now, as you know, they made an agreement with the police to stop harassing residents, including me, right?
Yep.
So I went to the police with it today. I went to Mark Rumley. I went to Bob Penta. It was down. But a year and a half after those agreements were signed, I found more of their junk. And a lot of the stuff is gone after I made my complaint today, John. So my point is this, people. The city of Medford now owns the assets of the defunct access station. In Medford, the station where John and I were members is gone. And there's no station replacing it right now. And they had a lot of junk up on the web that the city now owns. So the city was liable for that. You do realize that, John, right?
Yeah.
So, and the Twitter has a comment about Councilor Penta. And I wrote to Penta and I wrote to the police and said they're using this Twitter page wrongfully. So it's fascinating. 5 days before an election, that the rules are broken because they don't like this guy that helped sink the TV station.
Correct.
The two guys that sunk the TV station were being badmouthed. What does that tell you? Sour grapes? Well, sour grapes. That's my speech. That's my spiel.
And that's the story there. I mean, look at that. We've been fighting for a number of years. You started the fight. I joined in late, and to this point, it's all but won. The only thing that needs to happen is the station needs to be put back on the air, and that's the next thing coming. But until then, we're without access here in Medford.
Now, this is the good news for Winchester residents. We are talking on the sidelines. If there's a new Medford station, which there has to be because the cable TV subscribers are paying for it, we want to have an alliance with Maltin and Winchester and Stoneham. All the contiguous channels should all be aligned. All right. That's number one, John.
Right.
Number two, the weights and measures guy at City Hall with the solicitor are going through all of the assets of TV3.
Correct.
So Caraviello went over, Ed Finn went over and stepped in just to check it out the other day.
Yeah.
So they have all this massive equipment and stuff, and they're cataloging it all. I wrote to the Medford Police Department and asked the lieutenant I know over there to tell the mayor that I should be on the three-person panel. Three-person panel. Myself, Chris Donovan, and Councilor Robert Penta. Those are the three I am pushing to be on that panel.
Yeah.
Because we are the people that have been carrying the heavy lifting for years. So let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
Let's see how this goes. But that's, and you know, John, I'm not going to the mayor with this. I'm going to the Attorney General, the Secretary of the State. I went to the police today.
That's what I have to do, because at this point, this mayor has been unreceptive.
Unreceptive, good word. And I'm going to oversight the police, the AG, Secretary of State. We're going to every government oversight agency that can say to the mayor, these are the people that worked for this. They earned it. Now let them put access together. And then we can work with WinCam, MATV,
right.
Stoneham, Somerville, Cambridge, Burlington.
Right.
Have a network which people in Access have been trying for years to create a network. Now is the time.
Now is the time, but you got to get cities on board, and the thing has to be now with this, what you're talking about. Let me just pose this question: would this mean that a show that I do in Medford would be seen in Winchester, in Malden, and any other city? We know it can be seen on Verizon, but on Comcast at the same time.
Here's what I propose, John. In all the cities, the contiguous cities, they give overnight airtime to the sister stations. So we would probably come up with a best of. So a best of Monday night shows might be you on Monday night, me on Tuesday night, someone from Stoneham on Tuesday night. You know what I'm saying?
What you're telling me is that I wouldn't be seen live so that I could take calls from Winchester?
No, because you want to keep all of Access community media for that community. Winchester gets first dibs on all the airtime during the day. Now, will there be exceptions? Yes. And how do you get those exceptions? We have Democracy Now! That airs in the daytime, okay? Put Democracy Now! On the night, because that's imported program, and then you might have the John Byers show.
Right.
And you know why? Because you're a local sports figure, and you might have Gang Green, which is the Celtics show from Winthrop.
Yep.
So you might have these variety of shows that might get some prime time. We could have a block, if all the stations are in agreement, John, of 2 hours of Syndicate. So on the Syndicate, every day, 7 days a week, there's a 2-hour block with the most prolific hosts.
Right.
The guys that work the hardest, that are doing shows weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, they get on this cycle. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be great. I mean, that's probably what would have been worked for in Medford if we had...
Well, they had all the time in the world there. They had no shows.
Right.
They had...
Well, they had shows, but it was all imported stuff and non-Medford residential stuff, so that's why the station ended up failing.
Now, if you're one of the news media outlets in Medford that listen to the Monarch, right?
Yeah.
And you see that over 9,000 hits in the past 30 days went to my blog. 134,060 hits tonight. Probably at 134,100 by now. It's taken on a life of its own, John. A blog.
Well, Joe, that's the power right now, and I'll say it like I've been saying it to you when we talk at night. You've become the only legitimate media in Medford that isn't in the mayor's pocket. You're reporting what's happening, and you're going to be the key to the difference in this election cycle here in Medford. I really feel that because of your fair and accurate, and to use a term from Fox, balanced reporting.
Well, I appreciate that, but I think it'll take another 2 years. I think people have got hip to the website. I'm going to expand it after the election. I've already set up a new site on WordPress. So I'm expanding it, and we're going to be a power in Medford. But here's the thing, John. Okay? The political cycle's too late. So we'll see what happens on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning next week.
Yeah.
Okay? But now there is a legitimate new news source in Medford.
Right.
A new source. And we'll see what happens. I have ideas. People are now reading, because what I did today was I showed the alliance between Sheriff DePaula, the late Sheriff DePaula,
Right.
Patricia Cavell DePaula, who was his campaign manager, his sister, the brother-in-law at Medford Housing, and his wife in the mayor's office. And I put all four together, and then the Chelsea Housing Authority, and Tim Murray, and Mayor McGlynn, and then the former special sheriff, and Paul Camuso, the city councilor. When you connect the dots, what I did today, John, was connect the dots, and that's why we got so many hits.
Yeah.
And they weren't happy because this is the stuff you're not reading in the local papers.
Right.
About McGlynn's alliances with these individuals who weren't on the level.
Yeah.
And I could say that, this show is my thoughts are mine and not the WinCam staff or board. But this is all stuff from the Boston Globe. I just took the articles and connected the dots.
Exactly.
This is not fiction. This is just connect the dots.
Yeah.
So, interesting, Jeannie Martin wrote her first article. Jeannie Martin's a WinCam member. First article in Patch in a week and a half. But we'll see what happens, John. You're not running. It's too bad. I think you would have put some fun into the election.
I would have, but other things came up which caused me to pull out. But I'll tell you, depending on what happens this time, I'll definitely be in the running again in 2 years' time. And that will make it even more interesting because with Mr. D'Antonio and myself, the mayor will have a two-headed monster to deal with.
Two-headed monster. You know what I'm going to do, John? I'm going to call him up right now and see if he wants to talk on the air.
Okay, I'll let you go. I'll talk to you.
Happy Halloween.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
John from Medford. And John from Medford, our almost weekly guest. And he's frequent caller on 98.5 and 93.7. And it's 8:27 at night. And we had a lot of guests. Would you like to be on the air right now to say hi? This is visual radio. Would you? I haven't put you on the air yet. Would you like to be on the air?
Not right now.
Well, we'll hang up. Happy Halloween. Bye. I don't get it. Running for office, not right now. Okay, whatever. Whatever. All right, so.
Frank Del Stritto.
Happy Halloween, Frank.
Happy Halloween to you, Joe, and happy World Championship World Series.
Did you watch?
I did not watch,
Oh, how dare you.
but I was rooting for Boston all the way.
Well, thank you. I had a lot of guests lined up for tonight, and they couldn't make it. Frank Imbrogano, Ben Sola from the Netherlands. I think he's out trick-or-treating. No, I mean, it's 3 in the morning over there. I think they're out partying in the clubs. I guess the Netherlands never shut down, right?
Depends where in the Netherlands you are, but Amsterdam's a wild place.
Yeah, he did a dance mix of a friend of mine's song, and we've been corresponding on Facebook. So, Lisa Kavanaugh, my co-host, Vampy. I mean, Vampy, it's Halloween. He's ill. He's at home, but he was too ill to talk on the phone.
Oh, dear.
God bless Vampy. No, he's been ill for a couple of weeks. He had a bad accident about 2 years ago, and it went through the courts and the whole 9 yards, so he's a victim here. But I don't know if this is repercussions from that, but too ill to talk on the phone is not good.
No, that sounds pretty bad.
And then I had a politician on the phone whose election is 5 days away, and he didn't have time to talk. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it, Frank.
Hey, Joe, I don't know. Maybe they're blackballing you. Maybe.
Nah, we're in control. Hey, so here's a good one. the original Arthur Leonard book, The Count.
Yes.
They sent me the one from the University Press, but the original I got for this library discards, right?
Yeah.
So last week they had the library thing again, and one of my co-hosts, Joe Tortelli, was there. Joe Tortelli was there, and Joe McNulty from the Buzzcocks. We're old friends. We all went to the library thing, and he hands me Dracula, the Connoisseur's Guide.
Oh, yeah, I remember that book.
Leonard Woolf. It's really nice.
Oh, yes. No, it's Leonard Woolf has written A Dream of Dracula and Dracula, the Connoisseur's Guide.
Oh, there's two of them, huh?
Well, Dream of Dracula is, as I recall, Dracula, the Connoisseur's Guide is basically the novel with a lot of good commentary. Do I remember that right?
I think it is. Yes, I haven't really cracked it open except for tonight, but it really seems to be that, and I really like it so far.
He puts all, because when you're reading a book, not just Dracula, when you're reading a book from 1897, there are lots of references made that people from 1897 would know right away, but people in 2013 just don't get it. So I think what his book does is give you a lot of that detail and background of what certain things were and all that. For instance, I was reading a Sherlock Holmes story once, and Holmes got the morning mail and said, well, this isn't here, it'll be in the afternoon mail. And I realized in London in 1880 or so, you got more than one mail delivery a day.
Oh, wow.
While we're fighting to get one. So,
you got that right. Well, I'm going to veer off of our usual topic and talk about me for a second. You know that I have two co-authors. I'm writing a book, right? I don't know if you knew that. Were you aware of that?
I was not aware of that. What's the book about?
I've been writing the book for years. For like the past decade, I've been working on this book, but it started 40 years ago. It's the Rock and Roll Animal Tour, which was the band behind Lou Reed. And last Sunday, Lou Reed passed away.
I did not know that. How old was he?
Lou Reed was 71. He was the founder of the Velvet Underground. Have you heard of that band?
I know.
Wow, they're this iconic American band. They are to musicians what the Beatles are to the general public.
Okay. Well, Joe, whenever I get too big an ego, I just wait for you questions about music because I never know the answers to those.
To not have heard about the Velvet Underground, my friend Billy Perry married Joe Perry from Aerosmith, okay?
Okay.
She was married to Willie Loco Alexander of the Velvet Underground.
Okay.
And she said to me, I never heard of Aerosmith till I met Joe Perry. And I said, yeah, Billy, I never heard of the Beatles till you introduced me to them. How could she be married to a member of the Velvet Underground and not know who Aerosmith was? It's an impossibility. So, it's her fiction. And I love the girl. She's my friend. But, I have to set the record straight, Billy. You knew Aerosmith before you met the lead guitarist of Aerosmith.
Come on, Joe. The guy doesn't bring his work home at night. That's all that means.
See, his ex-wife's a good friend of mine, too. And the ex-wife's son and one of the current sons are in a band called Dead Boots, who are going to be on this show soon, unless they see this and get mad at me. But that's okay. I have to review their record, too. Lots to do.
Okay.
So that's my musical stuff. So Lou Reed passed away Sunday. I'd met him a few times, maybe 4 or 5 times. He put me on the guest list in 2000. I was the only person he put on his guest list.
Guest list for what?
For his concert. He played in Boston in 2000, sold out,
Yeah.
Put me on the list. I brought his old engineer. And the publicist said to me, Lou wanted to personally thank you for all your years of devotion to him. So, it's like you meeting Bela.
Okay.
Lou Reed is the Bela Lugosi in my life, if you will.
Okay.
Although he lived in the Hamptons and made a lot of money.
Well, yeah, don't rub it in.
Well, Lou was broke at one point in the 70s. He was absolutely broke despite having gold albums. That's the way the music business is. They didn't get paid for their work,
Where'd the money go? He never got the money.
Well, he eventually got it, but it always ends up in this or that litigation or whatever. And but Lou came out all right. He was an icon, and he did quite well. But of course, when he died, the downloads went through the roof. So his estate's probably worth 2 or 3 million more this week than it was.
Well, Lou's in good company because when I was reading up on the movie you're showing tomorrow, Night of the Living Dead, And though it was made for next to nothing and made money hand over fist, George Romero, who made it, apparently got almost none of that. But
Right.
he didn't know anything about distribution deals. So it wound up all going to the middlemen.
And the TV stations make a bundle because they don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, now, yeah, it's in public domain. But
He did a box set, though. He must have done pretty well with that.
well, he made a lot of movies after that, and I am a real fan of one of his. Most of his movies were kind of offbeat, but he made one that I would call a more traditional horror film called Monkey Shines, which I think is an excellent film. So hopefully he had a better distribution deal or got his piece of the action when he
You learn by doing,
Yep.
No, and Romero's a respected creature. I believe the late Ray McNally really appreciated Romero. I was friends with Ray.
Raymond McNally, the author.
Yeah, In Search of Dracula.
Yeah, okay. How'd you know him?
Oh, I knew him for years. I interviewed him in the 70s because he lived around the corner from my guitar player,
Okay.
Fred Pinot, and Fred's been on this show, and Fred was, I had dinner with Fred maybe 2 months ago. So Fred and I were in a band where we played Lou Reed music back in '74. And Ray McNally lived around the corner. I was the count. I went over and visited Ray, and we were friends up to his passing, 2002 or so. So he was on my show. It might have been one of his last interviews. Isn't that fascinating?
What do you have to say about Dracula? Do you remember?
He talked about Jekyll and Hyde. He told me the correct pronunciation is Jekyll.
Yes, it was and if you watch the 1931 Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it's pronounced Jekyll. But when you watch the 1941 Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the one with Spencer Tracy, Frederick March is in the 1931, but Spencer Tracy is in the 1941, and that's when they started using Jekyll. It's a more Americanized pronunciation of the word, and that's what it has taken over. I haven't heard Jekyll. Well, I was watching one movie made in the 1950s, and I heard a character call him Jekyll, but other than that, it's been Jekyll.
Well, I'll get back to the book by Ray McNally, but a side note, I wore my Dracula cape on a Halloween night with Dr. Ray McNally as we walked around Boston College because he was a Boston College professor.
Mm-hmm.
I'll call him doctor because he was a professor. Professor Ray McNally. Great guy, and I hung out with him on Halloween, and he wrote in the book, In Search of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, to a old faithful friend. So touching. I had no idea he was dying, and they didn't tell me. And then a friend said, "Hey, Ray is gone," and I was like, "Whoa." He must have come out just to do the show for me,
Yeah. I think I met him around 1970, something to do with his book, and somewhere I have a copy of his book that he autographed, but no personal inscription like he gave you.
Well, you met him 4 years before I did.
Okay.
How's that? You got one up on me, and he was a friend of mine.
I can't claim he was a friend of mine.
No. I'm saying you met him before I did, but he became a friend of mine, and I knew him for 32 years, which was kind of nice. Great guy. What a great guy. I mean, great mind. But what he told me was the title, the double entendre was, I kill and hide, meaning that Dr. Jekyll was not as nice as he projected. That Mr. Hyde, his alter ego, was actually the personification of him.
Well, if you read the book, and the book is almost unfilmable, so none of the film versions come close to the book. In the film versions, most of them boil down to Jekyll is engaged to the good girl, but he's attracted to the bad girl, and Hyde comes out and has his way with both of them. But the book is nothing like that. There's no women in the book. I think women are referred to, but I don't think there's any real women characters in the book. And you never find out what Jekyll's crimes are. You get the impression he's it's very much like a dream. It imposes impressions on you, but there's no real detail to the plot. So if you say, how many people did Dr. Jekyll kill? Did Mr. Hyde kill? In the novel, you go, well, we just don't know. We don't know if he killed anybody. We really don't know what his crimes are.
Well, if it's in the title, I kill and hide.
Yeah, well, you can get into some healthy arguments on...
Because he hides, so you're never going to know because he hides.
Well, and some people say Jekyll and Hyde was supposed to be sort of a play on hide and seek and Jekyll, but
that too.
In the end, I haven't read any. You'd like Robert Louis Stevenson to sit down and say, "Here's where I got the name Jekyll, and here's where I got the name Hyde." But since he never did that, as far as I know, we can argue with it what the words come from. Like Hyde, if you spell it with an I, becomes an animal skin. Like the cover on you all. So I mean, you can get in arguments on that. I don't mind I kill and hide at all, but in the book, whether he kills or not, we just don't know. We don't know what any of his crimes are, just that he's a very, very unpleasant guy.
Well, we'll have to get, when I make millions and millions of dollars, we'll have to get a think tank together and film Robert Louis Stevenson, Bram Stoker, and Oscar Wilde. We'll do a play where people who are immersed in their work can all argue over these black and white figures, Dracula, Dorian Gray, Jekyll and Hyde.
And who would you play?
I would just be the moderator. I'm good at moderating.
Okay. Yeah.
That's when I shut my mouth.
Okay, you can have Mary Shelley call in.
Oh yeah, Mary Shelley. We'll have to have her. I got a Shelley book too that night. Sunday, I got a Shelley book too. So all sorts of good stuff at these library. It breaks my heart that they give books away, and I'm glad I'm there to salvage them.
Yeah, well, give the libraries a break. They have to, there's new books coming in.
We talked about this. Yep.
They have to make shelf space, and they may have multiple copies of some of these old books, so they just have to unload them.
They have plenty of shelf space, but don't get me started because it's like public access. Things are in local communities. Things are run by turf war, I call it. So you don't always get the intellectuals running it. You get people that do things that are expedient.
Well, be careful what you wish for. I've been run by a couple intellectuals in my life. That wasn't the greatest experience.
No, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
I know what you mean.
No, it's just thinking of improving your community. That's got to be the key. The cornerstone is improving your community. And that's what I try to aspire to, You try to improve something, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, but some people think they're improving their community by getting rid of some books that aren't read and getting in some books that people want to read. Now, you could say, well, the books that aren't read, they should be reading, but then you get into a dicey area.
Well, if the libraries were overflowing and didn't have the space, and I'm not talking about Winchester Library, let's make that clear.
Okay.
Or I'm not, Medford Library is a whole different deal because that building needs to be rebuilt where I live. But there are some extraordinary libraries out here, and, so having people on access shows talking about the books on the shelves will get people to come out and read. I firmly believe that. I think we inspire people, Frank.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. What we inspire them to do, I don't know, but...
We inspire them to tune in either after this show at 9 o'clock tonight to watch Reeling, a movie review show, or tomorrow night at 9 o'clock to watch, on November 1st, the...
Night of the Living Dead.
Thank you.
1968. And I think we've said this before about the movie. This was a turning point in horror films, a turning point in films in general. Because, whenever a movie is made for a song, and I think the quoted budget on this is $114,000. And how much it made is anybody's guess, and it's still making money. It's in the public domain, but people still want to watch it. And let me say this, some of these seminal films, when you go back and see them decades later, sometimes it's hard to appreciate what all the fuss was about. But Night of the Living Dead ages particularly well, and I got to give them credit for that. It's not dated. So I'm trying to look up and see how much it made. I'm not finding that.
Do you go to boxofficemojo.com?
Right now I'm in IMDb, which sometimes tells you, sometimes doesn't.
Wikipedia has it, and sometimes, and boxofficemojo.com has it. What did you say? It doesn't date. You said it holds up well?
I think it holds up well. I mean, I had the same reaction. It was one of those movies that got such fame so quickly because it was, it was just kind of a slap in the face what was going on at the time. that you kind of knew about it. Certainly, you were warned of the explicit violence before you went in, and so and plus I saw with an audience which was a bit over the top audience. So when they started, I don't want to give away the movie if people haven't seen it, but you're going to see some cannibal zombies. So when the cannibal zombies start practicing cannibalism, the audience was almost cheering them on. There was people going, oh, but other people going, yeah, So it was a good crowd for that movie, or a bad crowd for that movie, depending on your outlook.
Well, I saw Rocky Horror Picture Show again last night, and Rocky Horror and Night of the Living Dead have a parallel universe, if you will, because they had cult followings. Both of them did. So there's something about the color movie, Rocky Horror Picture Show, in the black and white. And I think black and white is why it aged well. Like Psycho, the black and white added to the film, I think. When they're eating the intestines and stuff. Just the stark aura of the black and white film, and it's like you're in a whole other realm that is scary. Just a scary world.
Plus, it's easier. It's in a color movie, quite frankly, it's hard to get blood right.
Yeah.
Whereas in this movie,
Hammer Films did it pretty good.
Who did?
Hammer Films, I thought.
I always thought their blood was too bright red.
Okay, I liked it.
Really believed it was blood.
All right.
Whereas I think this movie uses Bosco. The special effects people all have their recipes for quicksand. They all have their recipes for movie blood. I think these guys just use Bosco.
Well, it's kind of like what Hitchcock did. He used chocolate.
Yeah, and it's easy to believe it's real blood because it's in black and white. If they had to go for the color, the color, the texture, you might be asking a lot of the special effects guys. And I never really believed Hammer's blood was always too red for me.
Well, now let's talk about extreme violence for a second, because I watched the rerun last night of Law & Order SVU, the first edition of this year's new run. Do you watch that at all?
I've watched Law & Order SVU, but it's been a while, so I'm probably not up on it.
So Chris Maloney left, and they've got Dan Pino, who was in, I think he was in NCIS or one of those shows. So Dan Pino's kind of replaced Christopher Maloney. And Mariska Hargitay was kidnapped at the end of last year by this really good-looking, muscular psychopath. So he looks like your everyday guy, could be playing football, and he goes out and murders people in those grisly of fashions. And it should have been a hint last year because he burned off his fingertips right in the diner where he worked, and they showed you him putting his hands on the grill. So it was pretty cringe factor last year, right?
So why did he do that?
Because he had been guilty of other crimes and he didn't want the cops catching him. Okay. Plus, he wanted to play cat and mouse with the cops.
He's trying to get rid of his fingerprints?
He did. He successfully did.
I didn't know you could do that without cutting your finger off.
Well, he burned them. And Law & Order SVU shows a lot of secrets of the criminal mind, which is probably not a good thing, but they do it. But here's where I'm leading to. Yes, Night of the Living Dead was extreme violence, especially for the time. Eating flesh, pulling guts out of people, and showing it on camera. Nothing left to the imagination, right? Mariska Hargitay beats this guy not once but twice in the most vicious, angry. The only thing I can liken it to is the Joker when the Joker killed Robin in the Batman comic. Did you ever see that?
No, I did not, but I know of it.
There were 3 Robins, and I think it was the second Robin. The Joker just beat him to death with a club, and Mariska Hargitay had that kind of rage in her eyes, and I'm like, oh my God, this is TV. I think that might have gone over people's heads just how graphically violent it was last night. And this is on Law & Order, and they have the R rating and whatever, but it was extreme violence. And, so we've come a long way from Night of the Living Dead.
Well, I mean, I gave it's Halloween, so I was giving a talk on the old horror movies, and
where?
There was at some women's club down at a retirement home. There's a women's a woman's society at a retirement home, and they asked me down to come and talk about old movies.
Tonight?
No, that was this afternoon.
Oh, good for you.
And
Do you videotape it?
Nah. Well, it's not much of my talk. I mainly play clips from movies.
Okay.
And which is why I kept my VHSs, because I can't set a DVD on exactly the moment I want to start the movie and then bring it to another machine. I can do that with VHSs, but I can't do that with DVDs. And when I give these talks, I always get the same questions. These movies are so much, less disgusting than the movies today. And my answer is, when Frankenstein came out in 1931, it was the first brain ever on a movie screen. People thought it was disgusting. All over the country, all over the world, there were cuts demanded. And if the movie wasn't banned outright, they demanded scenes be taken out because they thought they were too disgusting. Now you watch that movie now, and it's hard to say, well, what's the disgusting part? And so we keep pushing the envelope. Where it all leads, I don't know. When you got your back to the wall, you push the envelope on something: violence, sex, whatever. And somebody always has their back to the wall. So, I watch these older movies and I'm not upset at all, but my great-grandparents probably would have been aghast at what I take for granted. And that may happen with my great-grandkids may take for granted, may be aghast at, I may be aghast at what they're taking for granted. I don't know where it's leading.
We're spending our Halloween, people, with Frank Dello, the co-author with Andy Brooks of Vampire Over London, Bela Lugosi in Britain. I love the cover of your book. Bela's wonderful eyes looking over a green hue. It's like the Green Lantern meets Bela Lugosi.
Well, that cover was actually done by a neighbor of yours.
Who's that?
Name is an artist named Haig de Magian.
Okay.
And he lives in Gloucester.
Gloucester, where many of my pals live.
In fact, the only time I've ever been to Gloucester was to visit him when the book was being in production.
And you got Willie Alexander of the Velvet Underground up there in Gloucester?
Okay, well, when you ought to get Haig on to interview. I think he's your kind of guy, because he's a lot more with it on a lot of things that interest you than I am.
Oh, set him up. You still in touch with him, right?
I haven't been in touch for a while, but I'll use this as an excuse.
Say, yeah, you want to be on visual radio with him, because we'll have you on the phone and him in person.
His name is in the book, so if you want to Google him, but I will contact him and tell him.
Yeah, you'll have to send me an email. Because I can't pronounce it. But we have 2.5 minutes left. What would you like to talk about, the book or the Night of the Living Dead?
Let's talk about the Night of the Living Dead.
All right.
It says 1968, so that's 45 years ago. And as I've said before, it takes the world by storm. Let's see, I found that its gross was $12 million in the U.S., $30 million worldwide, and for that time, that was phenomenal. And I actually saw it. Within a year of its release, I saw it in the Museum of Modern Art, because, what you said is quite true. Night of the Living Dead and Rocky Horror Picture Show both have cult followings, but Rocky Horror Picture Show never inspired the interest in all levels of the movie-going world like Night of the Living Dead did. And I went to the Museum of Modern Art to see a showing of it, and it was introduced by the curator of fine arts or something like that, And then at the end of it, and it turned out George Romero was there, and he got up and did a Q&A. So this is at a museum within a year if it's released. Now, you're not surprised when some of these old horror movies show up at a museum 30 years after their release. Oh, we got the cast here, yada, yada. This was in a year, because that was the kind of interest it showed. And
that was in New York?
That was in New York City, Museum of Modern Art.
And why were you there?
Well, I'm from New Jersey, and I used to follow all the museums because that's where I'd see old movies that wouldn't get on TV. It's hard to explain to kids today, but in the pre-video age, you were pretty much at the mercy of what television wanted to show.
And we're at the mercy of the clock. We've got 30 seconds left. You met George Romero. I'm impressed. Our critic met George Romero, the director of Night of the Living Dead. How good is that? Did you get his autograph?
No, but he was a funny guy. I asked him some questions, and when you say I met him, it was him, it was me, and about 600 other people. So it wasn't an intimate thing, but I saw him in the flesh.
And well, happy Halloween. We'll talk more about George Romero next week with our next movie.
Good.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Frank Dello Stritto. Thank you, Judy Kellerman. Thank you, WinCam. Thank you, John Byers, Frank Dello Stritto. This is our show. Reeling is on next. Watch Reeling. We're going to have those people in here. And Night of the Living Dead tomorrow.